Why do some mornings feel like a race you never agreed to run? What if the way you start your day is silently programming how the rest of it unfolds? And what if fixing your mornings isn't about doing more, but simply doing the right things first? If you don't rise with clarity, you wake up in chaos. And that's not just a bad habit, it's a red flag. Because how you begin your day quietly determines how everything else will play out. When your first instinct is to reach for your phone, dive into texts, or scroll through a flood of digital noise, be surprised when the rest of your day feels like it's spinning out of control. The truth is, most of us are running on fumes before we even leave the house. Not because we're lazy, and not because we lack discipline, but because no one ever taught us how to begin the day on purpose. When your mind wakes up already in survival mode, rushed, reactive, overstimulated, you spend the entire day catching up. The world leads you instead of you leading it. You're spinning instead of steering. The Stoics knew this deeply. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." But here's the catch. You can't become that person if your mornings begin in digital noise and emotional fog. If your day starts like a mental avalanche, heart pounding, thoughts racing, pressure mounting before your feet even hit the ground, that's not just tiredness. That's misalignment. And the worst part? We normalize it. We call it just life. But it's not life. It's a pattern. And that pattern is stealing your clarity, your confidence, and your control. When your first thoughts are stress and noise, that energy follows you like a shadow. It stains your mood, your meetings, your focus. Every message you read, every choice you make, it all gets colored by that early chaos. Let's be brutally honest for a second. Most of us don't wake up and crush it. We hit snooze, we scroll, we check notifications for updates we didn't ask for, and by the time we're finally vertical, we're already behind. It's not that we're lazy, it's that our mornings have no momentum. That initial chaos, it's like pouring low-grade fuel into a high-performance engine. No wonder everything feels sluggish, heavy, off. But here's the twist. You're only a few deliberate choices away from changing the story. A handful of intentional habits can take you from drifting to driven, from scattered to centered, from exhausted to empowered. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." So maybe your chaotic mornings aren't your enemy. Maybe they're your invitation. And as Carl Jung once warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So if any of this feels like it's hitting home, if you're ready to take back your mornings, and by extension, your life, then do this one small favor: tap that subscribe button. Stick around. Don't skip ahead. Don't miss what's coming next. This isn't just a video. It's a reset. Because the truth is strange, isn't it? How the very first few seconds of your day before you've said a single word can quietly decide everything that follows. Your morning doesn't begin with motion. It begins with mindset. And most of us? We're waking up reacting to noise, to alerts, to demands we never consciously agreed to. Our feet hit the floor, but our minds are already behind. Right there in that fragile, fleeting moment between sleep and full awareness, you face the first true choice of the day. Will you lead your morning? Or will you let it lead you? When your alarm rings, it's not just a cue to wake up. It's a crossroads. Do you instantly drown in other people's priorities, or do you pause, breathe, and check in with yourself before the noise gets in? That tiny pause, just a few seconds of stillness, might be the most powerful thing you do all day. Because how you enter the world is how you experience it. Seneca put it plainly. If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. If you don't choose a direction the moment you wake, don't be surprised when your day feels rushed, scattered, or off course. Your brain is highly suggestible in those first few waking minutes. What you think, feel, and say to yourself becomes the filter through which the rest of your day is processed. So, if your first input is stress, panic, or distraction, that becomes your baseline. But what if you start with something better? Something as simple as, how do I want to feel today? That single question gives your mind a compass. Say, I want to feel focused. Or, I want to lead with calm. Now your actions have a direction. Your brain begins building a story around that feeling, and you start moving like someone who chose it. Carl Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. But what you do begins with what you believe. And what you believe begins with what you focus on." So no, intentional mornings don't require a 4 a.m. wake-up on a mountaintop. They begin with one decision: to set your posture before you take your first step. Because those first few minutes, they aren't just the start of your day. They're the blueprint for everything that comes next. Previously, we uncovered how those fragile moments after waking set the emotional temperature for your entire day. Now, let's talk about what happens when you actually claim those moments as your own. Think about this. However you spend the first 10 minutes after you wake, your brain tries to match that energy for the rest of the day. Start scattered, you stay reactive. Start grounded, you move with quiet control. Yet most of us hand over those sacred 600 seconds without a second thought. We grab our phones, scroll through headlines, emails, notifications, and suddenly, our peace is hijacked by someone else's drama. And then we wonder, why am I already exhausted by noon? But what if you didn't? What if, instead of plugging into the noise of the outside world, you tuned into yourself first? No to-do list, no pressure, just presence. It only takes 10 minutes. 10 minutes to breathe, to stretch, to write a single sentence in a journal, not for social media, but for clarity. Maybe you light a candle. Maybe you sit in stillness. Or maybe you just plant your feet on the floor and say quietly to yourself, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm choosing. That kind of presence? It's rare, but it's powerful. The Stoics knew the value of owning the morning. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the world would challenge him, that chaos, discomfort, and setbacks were part of the deal. But he also reminded himself that he had a choice in how to respond. The reminder happened before the world reached for him. That's the key. Respond to yourself first before reacting to everything else. Psychologically, this isn't just a productivity trick. It's cognitive conditioning. The thoughts and behaviors you rehearse in those early minutes prime your subconscious. And your subconscious? It quietly governs most of your decisions throughout the day. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." But what if you didn't avoid it? What if for just 10 minutes you met yourself? Saturday, with the quiet, instead of running from it. This isn't about building some Pinterest-worthy morning ritual. You don't need a vision board or an altar. You just need intention. Maybe you stretch the tension out of your back. Maybe you sip your coffee slowly, instead of gulping it like a firefighter responding to a 5-alarm blaze. Maybe you write down one thing you want to focus on today and actually mean it. These may seem small, but they're not. They're acts of sovereignty. They are you reclaiming your mental real estate before the world starts building on it. Think of your first 600 seconds like the ignition of a high-performance engine. You don't slam the gas the moment it turns on. You ease in, you stabilize. And once it's warmed up, the performance speaks for itself. That's the difference. Not doing more, doing less with intention. Most people start their day already bracing for what could go wrong, thinking about unfinished tasks, awkward conversations, looming deadlines. It's like walking into battle while already expecting to lose. But here's something no one told you. Your mind doesn't just follow your body. Your body follows your mind. Which means whatever mental image you hand your brain in those first few minutes has incredible power. That image becomes more than just a mood. It becomes a signal that influences your actions, your confidence, and your outcomes. And here's the fascinating part. Your brain, especially your subconscious, can't tell the difference between something vividly imagined and something real. That's why elite athletes mentally rehearse their routines before they ever compete. That's why world-class performers visualize standing ovations before they ever step on stage. Because when you see yourself doing the thing, your brain starts believing it's already possible. It begins preparing for it. This isn't fluff. This is neuroscience. It's called mental rehearsal. Even just a few minutes of clear, immersive visualization can start rewiring your brain. You imagine your goal not as a fantasy, but as if you've already done it. Hear the tone of your voice when you're confident. Feel the energy in your body after you've followed through. Picture the version of you that showed up and finished the thing. This isn't about escaping reality. It's about shaping it. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. Seneca used it to mentally prepare for setbacks, so they lost their sting. But what if we flipped it? What if you used that same mental strength to premeditate success? To normalize achievement so that when it comes, you don't feel like a fluke, you feel ready. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Visualization is the awakening. It's the practice of tuning your internal compass before the outside world distracts it. You're not waiting for success to show up. You're preparing to meet it with your mind already primed. So here's the move. Tomorrow morning, don't just roll out of bed and stumble into autopilot. Pause. Sit still. Close your eyes. Choose one goal, just one, and see yourself already there. Feel it. Move like it. Be it. The more vivid the image, the more power it holds. The more emotion you infuse into it, the more your brain hardwires the belief. This is who I am. This is what I do. Because motivation, it's wildly overrated. And that's exactly where we're heading next, into the truth about motivation and why waiting for it might be the very thing keeping you stuck. We just uncovered how visualization isn't wishful thinking. It's neurological preparation. Now let's bridge that with the next piece. Most people get completely backward. Motivation. Here's the trap most of us fall into. I'll move when I feel inspired. I'll start when I feel ready. But let me ask you, how often does that moment actually come? Once a month? Once a year? That's the catch. Motivation isn't the starter. It's the result. The truth is, action comes first. Not grand, sweeping change, not perfection, just movement. Just one small push, one stretch, one push-up, one slow lap around the block while the world is still sleeping. And that single flicker of effort, it changes everything. Because your body leads your mind more often than you realize. You move first, and your physiology responds. Your blood begins to flow, your breath deepens. The brain fog starts to lift, and slowly, your system starts aligning. It's not about intensity, it's about initiation. That small motion sends a signal your nervous system recognizes instantly. A message that says, we're on now, we're awake, we're moving forward. And that signal doesn't just stay in your limbs, it triggers mental alignment. Your thoughts sharpen, your mood steadies, your energy rises. What once felt overwhelming now looks manageable. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That strength isn't forged in endless mental rehearsal. It's found in those quiet, early moments when you move before your doubts have the chance to wake up. Because doubt, it loves stillness. It feeds on hesitation. The longer you wait, the louder it grows. The more space you give it, more excuses it invents. But the moment you move before doubt gets its grip, you rob it of its power." Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And that's exactly what happens when you resist that first step. But here's the thing. Resistance isn't some immovable wall. It's fog. And fog disappears the moment you walk through it. That's why the first few minutes of movement each day aren't just healthy habits. They're psychological warfare. They train you to move first, to clear the fog so your mind can follow with purpose. And no, you don't need to be an athlete. This isn't about performance. It's about intention. 15 push-ups before your shower. A 5-minute stretch on the floor. Walking your dog with your phone on airplane mode. The content doesn't matter as much as the consistency. What matters is that you moved. That you made a decision. That you reminded yourself, I run this, not my excuses. Every time you choose motion over delay, you reclaim a piece of your discipline. And that discipline? It stacks. Step by step. Choice by choice. Until one day, what once felt heavy becomes your baseline. You wake up, you move, you lead, and your day follows the tempo you set. But let's go even deeper. Because while your body moves, there's another voice that's been running the show often in the background. Your internal narrator. You know the one. It judges. It criticizes. It reminds you of every stumble, every failure before you've even had your coffee. Here's the thing. You're not broken. You're human. That voice? It's always there. But the question is, who's writing the script? If you're not intentional about it, chances are it's been hijacked by fear, by doubt, by old stories that no longer serve you. We all have inner dialogue, but most of it is unconscious, formed by things we heard growing up, things society repeated, and the quiet whisper of failure when things didn't go our way. But if you don't consciously shape that narrative, it shapes you. Daily. Automatically. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And your reaction begins with your internal story." Ask yourself, what's the first thing you say when you look in the mirror? Be honest. Is it supportive? Or is it disguised judgment dressed up as motivation? Here's the truth. Self-talk isn't fluff. It's strategy. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's what unchecked self-talk does. It becomes your internal operating system, and worse, it starts to feel normal. But what if you flip the script? What if the first words you said each day weren't rooted in self-doubt, but in self-direction? You don't need 100 affirmations. You don't need to fake anything. Just say one true sentence out loud that aligns with who you're becoming. Something like, "I move with clarity. I don't respond to chaos. I get stronger every time I show up." These aren't mantras, they're anchors. And with repetition, they become beliefs. And beliefs shape identity. And identity drives behavior. You wouldn't speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself. So why give yourself the harshest voice in the room? Every word you say, even in your own head, either lifts you or limits you. There is no neutral. Your brain is always listening. So use that power on purpose. Try it tomorrow. Don't wait for your mood to catch up. Stand tall. Say something real even if it feels awkward at first. Say, "I lead myself today." Say, "I keep promises to myself." You're not lying. You're leading. Because when your mind sees you as someone worth following, guess what? The world starts to see it too. And that leads us to the next piece of the puzzle, clarity. Because you can't lead your day with power if you haven't chosen where you're headed. Let's talk about the one wine and how to make it your anchor. I've just learned how one powerful, intentional action can set the rhythm of your day. But here's the truth. There's always that one thing we keep avoiding. And the longer we let it linger, the heavier it becomes. That task, the one that quietly follows you into the shower, That whispers in the back of your mind while you're replying to emails or checking notifications? That's not just a to-do item. That's resistance. And resistance doesn't come from the size of the task, it comes from the energy we waste avoiding it. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people ignore. What you're putting off isn't just a line on a list. It's your mental anchor. It's quietly weighing you down even when everything else seems in motion. We mask it with busy work. We do the laundry. We reorganize our files. We answer emails that could wait, all in the name of being productive. But deep down, we know the truth. We're avoiding the one thing that would actually move the needle. Yet, if you've ever forced yourself to hit send on that uncomfortable email, crushed that brutal morning workout, or had the difficult conversation you've been dreading, you already know the secret. It sets you free. That one task, the one that tightens your chest, holds the key to unlocking momentum. And when you face it first, everything else feels lighter, simpler, easier. To the Stoics, this wasn't just a productivity hack, it was a way of life. Cleanthes wrote, "Lead me, Zeus and you, destiny, to wherever you have assigned me. I shall follow without hesitation." They didn't wait for perfect timing or the right mood. They walked toward challenge, not away from it. Why? Because facing discomfort head-on didn't just build toughness, it built peace. Because once the hard thing is done, everything else is a breeze by comparison. Carl Jung echoed this in psychological terms. He said, "What you resist not only persists but grows." Avoiding discomfort doesn't eliminate it. It amplifies it. It feeds it. It lets it fester in the background like a leaky faucet that slowly floods your focus. But when you confront it, especially early in your day, something shifts. You reclaim control. You free up mental bandwidth. You create space for clarity, energy, momentum. And no morning routine, no journaling practice, no playlist can replace that inner calm that comes from doing the thing you least want to do. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about freeing yourself. You take that tension and you flip it into fuel. The ripple effect is real. You write faster. You speak clearer. You make decisions with confidence. Because you already proved to yourself you do hard things. And that self-trust, it shows in how you carry yourself for the rest of the day. So don't wait. Don't tell yourself, "I'll get to it later." Don't numb the pressure with easier wins. Find that one thing that's weighing on your chest and tackle it. No warm-up, no overthinking, no debate. Just step into it. Because the rush you feel afterward, that's not just relief. That's clarity. That's alignment. That's energy, finally unchained. And the more you do this daily, deliberately, the more your identity starts to evolve. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids pressure. You start seeing yourself as someone who performs under it. As someone who doesn't flinch, who finishes, who thrives in discomfort not because it's easy, but because it's a choice. You see, comfort is sneaky. It tells you you're doing fine. It whispers that ease is the goal. That's staying in your little bubble, your habits, your routinesis, smart. But here's what comfort doesn't tell you. It dulls your edge. It makes you fragile, because growth doesn't come from ease. It comes from stretch, from resistance, from deliberately choosing to be uncomfortable while you still have the privilege to choose. And Noit doesn't have to be chaos. It can be a cold shower that shocks your system awake. It can be reading a dense paragraph when TikTok is one swipe away. It can be showing up for a 6 a.m. workout when your bed begs you to stay. These aren't punishments. They're practice. You're telling your brain, I don't avoid hard things. I face them on purpose. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorumda, premeditation of adversity. Seneca advised people to expose themselves to controlled discomfort. Rough clothes, plain food, sleeping without luxury, not for suffering, for training. He wrote, set aside a number of days in which you shall be content with the scantiest fare, with rough dress, saying to yourself, is this the condition I feared? Why? Because fear of discomfort is often worse than discomfort itself. And once you choose it, once you step into it, willingly it starts to lose its grip. Carl Jung mirrored this idea through the concept of integration. He believed that the parts of ourselves we hide must be faced for true growth. He wrote, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. But that pain doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes, it's simply the pain of choosing discipline over delay, of choosing a cold, clear step forward instead of staying warm and stuck. That moment? That's the birth of resilience. Controlled discomfort does more than build toughness. It builds trust. Trust that you can handle pressure, that you don't need the perfect mood or perfect conditions, that you can move even when it's hard. And that is power. Because life won't always warm you up. It won't always be gentle. But if you've trained in the quiet hours of the morning, you'll face the day's chaos with calm, not panic. And in those early sacred minutes before the phone rings, before the world starts demanding your attention, you get a choice. Waste that space with noise, or treat it like sacred ground. So let's build on that foundation. Let's talk about the one practice that sharpens your mind like a blade. Intentional learning.